Perfect. All right, everyone. Well, good afternoon, good evening, buenas tardes, buenas noches. Welcome to our May edition of this Family Circle, our once monthly hangout and opportunity for you to connect with the Verto team and connect with one another about topical themes that relate to your students' pre-departure experience as they prepare for their semester with Verto that's quickly approaching here. The date is Wednesday, May 21st, so you probably see that June month in your rear mirror. We're going to have a lot of references to driving tonight, so I'm trying to get you prepped here. So if you look in your rear mirror, you probably see June quickly approaching. So a lot of things are coming up. And that being said, we have lots of tools and resources to keep you and your students safe on the road, ready to get to your destination. So tonight's topic is our academic circle. We're going to share a lot of information relevant to your students' academic experience, including how can they prepare for course selection, which is currently active through mid-June. What can they do to prepare for their academic experience, and what are some of the resources available to them once they get to their location? So before we do that, I asked folks to share in the chat where your student is headed in the fall and what their channel school is, meaning a school that invited your student to participate in a Verto experience for a semester or a year before joining their college campus. So I encourage you to take a look in the chat and see if there are any parents joined tonight that have a student with a similar journey as yours. This is also your community space to make connections. So a little bit about the folks that are here with you this evening. Thank you for joining. My name is Mateo. I'm the community manager here at Verto. I organize events for students and families to get to know one another and to get to know our community, which is a community you're now a part of. So I'm very excited to get to know you. And if we previously met in one of our welcome calls for families, welcome back to this monthly opportunity to continue to support your student along their pre-departure process. Next, I'll let Stephen introduce himself, please.
Thank you, Mateo. Good evening, everyone. My name is Stephen James Mokler, and I am Verto's Assistant Director of Academic Affairs, and I am excited to be driving along with you on our presentation tonight.
Beep, beep. All right, and last but not least, I'll let Steph introduce herself too.
Hey everyone, I'm Steph, Director of Student Onboarding and Financial Services. I support two of the teams that work very closely with your students from point of enrollment until point of arrival on site. So I'll be here to support in just answering Q&A, but it is all Stephen and Mateo tonight.
All right, thank you, Steph. And yes, as Steph mentioned, as you have questions throughout this presentation, or if you came to this circle with questions, go ahead and add those questions to the Q&A feature instead of our chat. So you might see on your Zoom toolbar a little bubble that says Q&A. There are two talking bubbles, or you might click more, the three dots, and click into Q&A. This is so that we can organize all of your questions in the same spot, and you can see all of the questions that we've answered in the same place as well. In the past, when we do question and answer in the chat, it gets kind of chaotic. So if you could direct all your questions there, and we'll answer them as we go throughout the presentation. All right, so I think we're ready to buckle up and get ready to turn our blinker on. Stephen, I'm going to turn it to you.
Yeah, thank you, Mateo. We'll go ahead and get to the next slide. And I think that this is a feeling that many of you can sympathize with right now. So here on the screen, we have a little cartoon about the first day of school versus the first day of college. You know, first day of school, the child doesn't want to leave. Mom is pulling him and making sure that he's ready to go. As opposed to the first day of college where she is holding on to her baby. But the other thing that I think, you know, we talk about first day of school, first day of college, you can see in the background the difference in the vehicle that's taking them where they want to go. So on the first day of school, you've got that school bus, the cheese wagon, but on that other day of school, you have a car. So we think that these experiences are very analogous to one another. Teaching your student and preparing them to go out in the world to go do something that's, can feel very big and scary and can be very intimidating to let your baby go. So we're going to work through that metaphor with you tonight. And hopefully by the end of it, you'll be just as happy with them in the driver's seat as you were and as proud as you were when you got to see them take off for the first time. So here, what we'll cover, we're getting ready to drive, the basics, preparing for the journey, tools and resources that we provide, navigating the route, so course selection and planning for the semester ahead. And then once your student is abroad, what can they expect? What support and how to maintain during their journey? Next slide, please, Mateo. So first, one of the first steps I think everyone wants to make sure is that the car that you're putting your child into is safe, that it's a good car, that it is something that you is reliable and you can depend on. And so we here at Verto love feedback, and we provide a lot of opportunities and have collected many a survey response over the length of our company's history. And so some of those opportunities that you have to provide feedback. Students, they provide it to us through a post-arrival survey, a midterm pulse, end-of-term survey, and then midterm and final course and faculty ratings. So the first bullet focuses on the student life aspect of things, while the second bullet focuses on the academic. And then we also have a post-arrival survey and end-of-semester survey for parents. So this is an opportunity for you to share your feedback about your experience in getting, your student prepared and off to the races, and then also at the end of the semester of the journey looking back. And then also we do a lot of surveying with the partners who we work with. So from the student evaluations, I just wanted to pull some data that I think is interesting and will hopefully get you excited. So in our student responses, 82% responded. This is from fall 24. So, and we had, I believe, 80% response rate from all students, which is unheard of in course and faculty ratings. So 82% of students responded the course challenged them to think critically. 84% felt that their courses were giving them the knowledge, skills, and attitudes to succeed in their chosen career path. And 88% felt that their instructors created an inclusive climate and made them feel comfortable when they were in class. Another bullet point that I didn't get to add in here, but 87% of students said that classes were as difficult or more difficult than courses that they had taken in high school. So students feel very comfortable in these classes. They feel like they're being challenged. And then they're also feeling supported while they do it. From our family surveys, the end of semester survey, 74% of families indicated that they were highly likely, they gave us a 9 or a 10 out of on the scale of 1 to 10, that they would recommend Verto to a friend or family member considering college. And then finally, like I said, we often gather feedback from our university partners to make sure that, the students and the preparation that we're doing for them is adequate for the channel schools that they're going off to. And 97% of Verto Channels partners agreed or strongly agreed that their relationship with Verto provided value to their institution. So I hope that this is, if you haven't had the chance to attend one of our channel open houses or one of the other many events that we've hosted to help you get to know Verto a little bit better, I hope that these stats are starting to, we don't just say it, other people say it, students say it, partners say it, parents say it. So very important to feel secure that your students are getting into a very safe car on this journey, this big journey that they're about to take. Next slide, please, Mateo. So reading the handbook, these are some reminders that we wanted to make sure that everyone, right, you don't let anyone turn the key until they've read the book and they know which is the gas and which is the brake. I made that mistake once and have a new garage to show for it when I was 13. So we want to make sure that you are getting off on the right foot and not driving in the wrong direction. So be sure we provide a lot of documentation that helps you understand what is required during this experience and how students are expected to behave and what they can expect in return. So if you haven't done so, make sure that you review the participant agreement, that you review the Verto policies. These are published on our website. They will be updated by July for the upcoming academic year. And then just in case you aren't aware, participants can complete up to 3 semesters with Verto. So depending on what your channel, if you're a channel student and the pathway and program that you're a part of, there might be some limitations on that. So be sure to check your channel registration guide to see the maximum number of allowed semesters. And then if students are interested in spending more than 1 semester with us, it's important for them to understand that they can do a maximum of 30 credits in 1 location. So that typically means that they can stay in a location for 2 semesters. And if they decide that they want to stay for a third, they have to transition to a different study location in order to complete their time with us. And then finally, participants must maintain a 2.0 GPA to participate in additional semesters. So this is the minimum Verto GPA for students to continue from semester to semester. The required GPA for your channel student, channel program, or if your student is interested in the direct transfer option may be higher. But if you want to stay with Verto, you have to maintain a 2.0. And we do a lot to communicate at different points in the semester, whether or not students are on track or off track of meeting that goal. But we don't want anyone to be surprised if it comes to the end of the semester and there are students who are right at that 2.0 that they're getting emails that they might not be able to continue. So next slide, please, Mateo. So getting ready to let your student drive. This is as much about the actual things that we do as the technicalities as much as the feelings. So this is exhilarating and nerve-wracking for your student and you. We acknowledge that. For your student, it's going to be a challenge changing from high school to college, from going from the US to abroad. For you, the distance is going to probably be a challenge. You're used to waking up in the morning and seeing them across the breakfast table, most of you, I'm sure. And then through elementary school and all through high school, you've probably had a level of direct intervention, whether that's going into your child's bedroom in the morning and pulling their blankets off of them and wiggling their toes and making sure that they make it to all of their appointments, or talking to teachers directly about how they're doing. Whereas now the transition is support, and it's not just because of the distance, but because of legal requirements as well. So the Family Education Rights and Privacy Act, this dictates that students, when they turn 18, are in charge of their records. They're in charge of their academic records. They are allowed to decide whether or not their parents can view them. And then we cannot talk to parents unless students have given us that authorization. So that can be very different from from parents who might have been more active and involved in previous semesters. But it is something that you need to start preparing yourself for now, so that you're ready when they are far away and can't intervene as directly as you once did. Next slide, please, Mateo. So now let's orient you all to the car. What systems do we use? So the Verto website, this is going to be the main source of Verto info. There is a ton of information that is available for parents, I should say. There are some resources that are available to students only, and if they want to review them with you, they can. But the main source of information for you as a parent is going to be the Verto website. And so that'll be in the enrolled participants page, the location resources page. Thank you, Mateo, for flipping over for everyone to see. And then the post-Verto planning pages that we have throughout. So be sure, if you haven't had an opportunity to dig into these, bookmark it somewhere in your browser, and then you'll come back to it again and again, I promise. My Verto, so this is one of the main systems that your student will use. This is the hub for completing your pre-departure items. So this is where you submit documents, where you submit transcripts, and then also where you complete course selection. And then it's also where your student can access materials related to their post-Verto planning as well. So then we also use Canvas. Canvas is a learning management software. And so this is where your students will be enrolled, taking their classes, where they'll submit their homework, where they will interact with their professors. There will also be some things during the summer with orientation courses. They'll be enrolled and be interacting. And already right now, they've been enrolled in our placement advising and college exploration course, PACE. And this is where students take their placement exams, and then also where you can access more detailed information. Of course, registration, it includes links to different documents, videos, a fun PowerPoint presentation that is a frequently asked questions crystal ball. So please encourage your students to check that out if they haven't done so yet. Next, we want to call out the community app. So this is the social aspect of the Verto program. This is where students come together and they can start to meet their roommates. Mateo manages this and does a really wonderful job of setting people up during pre-departure and then during the semester. And then finally, My Charger. So our academic provider is the University of New Haven. All students are enrolled there. And so as a part of that, they receive a student ID number, a student email, and this is where they will access their grades and apply for academic accommodations. So next slide, please, Mateo. So gassing up, just again, to emphasize my Verto, you will go nowhere on a Verto semester if your student will go nowhere if they are not checking my Verto and they're completing their checklist items. So again, like I said, this is where they upload their high school transcripts, where they upload their prior learning credit. So if your student has taken AP and IB courses in the past and taken the test and received scores, this is where they will upload them. This is also where they will upload them when they're published on July 7th. If they have taken them for this past semester, this is where they can see details on whether or not their access to Canvas and PACE has been set up, and also where they do course selection. Next slide, please, Mateo. All right, so we are managing our emotions. We have read the fine print. We have a learner's permit in hand, and we are ready to finally get behind the wheel and start driving. So one of those things is figuring out what the destination, and we provide a lot of different resources during pre-departure in order to help with that. So location selection guides, PACE, which I've gone over, course registration guides, and then the thing that I want to call out here is course selection office hours. These are every Wednesday through the end of open course selection. So you can sign up through, your student can sign up through the community app. So what is open course selection? At this time, if your student has completed all of the required pieces, if they've required all of the required checklist items, so uploading their transcript and completing the math placement test or deciding to opt out of the math placement test, they should be able to go in and begin selecting their courses. Courses are not first come, first serve. So students can log in anytime between now and June 16th and make their selections. They can go in as many times as they want and make as many selections, changes as their thinking changes. There's more details in our course selection information FAQ document. But so if your student has completed all of their checklist items, they will be able to do that freely until June 13th. After June 13th and until about mid-July, the only way course registration course selection, reopens is if students submit documentation that changes their eligibility. So what does that mean? So if your student decided, right now they want to be, an English major and they will never use math again and they hate it so much. But then over the summer, they decide that they want to switch to be a marine biologist and they realize that they have to take all of the math and all of the science in order to do that. But when they made their initial course selections, they decided that they didn't want to take the math placement exam. Well, after June 13th, they can still take the math placement exam. And once that score is uploaded to their record, they'll receive an email that tells them your eligibility has changed. You can select courses again. You have 7 days to complete your course registration. So they'll be able to go in and again, make as many changes as they want and then submit in those 7 days. So if they miss their window though, they miss their window and their old selections will stand. So very important to keep in mind, especially like I mentioned, AP scores will be available on July 7th. So your student can upload those to the prior learning section in MyVerto. And if it changes their eligibility in the middle of July, they'll be able to make course selection again. So next slide, please, Mateo. So here, if you haven't had a chance to talk about it with your student, this is an example first semester schedule for students. This is taken from our website. But again, at maximum of 3 semesters, 15 credit hours each in each location for a maximum of 45 credit hours, students who are interested in any kind of STEM course need to take the math placement exam in order to qualify for those courses. So we want to make sure that students are prepared to go into the different things that we offer. And so this is a critical step in doing that. And then also, if your student is interested in taking a Spanish course, they need to take the modern language placement exam as well to ensure that they're being placed and challenged appropriately. So The course catalog, Verto has chosen these courses for their transferability, their applicability to the first year college student experience. And so we encourage all students to try to take a lab science, a math class, an English class, really get those core courses out of the way. And then, with the leftover spots, choosing one or two electives that might be interesting to them. Next slide, please, Mateo. One of the things, so you're probably wondering, well, how will my student know what courses they should choose? How will they, they could be different, et cetera. We offer location selection guides. So these are developed by our on-site academic teams. And you can go to the location resources page and take a deeper dive into them. They include, this is specific. So when you look at the course list, it shows all of the courses that are available at Verto. Whereas these location selection guides focus specifically on the offerings in this location and then what makes those courses in that location unique. So there's some pictures, there's some little icons on each of the offerings to help you better understand what might be involved in a course. And then there are descriptions of how the course typically looks in that location. So it might have details on what kind of experiential learning is typical for this. Maybe it's a walking intensive class. Maybe it'll help you understand. We get a lot of questions about should I take drawing 1? Is it an easy drawing class? No, that's a studio art class that even if you come in, it will grow your skills tremendously. But it is, definitely something that, you can get more information about by reading these different descriptions from your locations. And then next slide, please, Mateo. PACE, I've already talked about this. This is accessed through Canvas. It's where you'll complete your placement exams and then also additional course selection resources, a lot of FAQs and videos here that students can access and help them as they complete course selection. Next slide, please. The course registration guide. So this is very important for our channel students. So this is a guide that is co-created with your channel school to help students select courses. In each of these guides, you'll find details, you'll find a course articulation table that shows students how the courses that they take at Verto will transfer to their post-Verto institution, how they will transfer to their partner school. So if you're wondering, oh, let's go with drawing 1 again, how is drawing 1 going to transfer to BU? Is drawing 1 going to transfer to BU? I don't know that off the top of my head. That's another colleague who's not on the call tonight. But going into these course selection guides, and reading more in depth about how they will transfer to your post-Verto institution is very important. And you'll also find that there are FAQs about what you can expect in the transition from participating in a Verto semester to being on site. So there are some nuances, things to consider. Some include different guidance on potential majors that you might select and the requirements there. So this is probably one of the most important documents that channel students have access to. And then just if you're concerned, well, what if my student is going to choose a course that's not going to transfer? The course selection system is actually set up to prevent that from happening. So when they go into their course selection tool in MyVerto, if a course doesn't transfer to their post-Verto institution, there's a tab that will clearly say you cannot select this course because it does not transfer. So next slide, please, Mateo. So getting behind the wheel, again, just course selection. One of the big things to keep in mind with this is what is the destination? So I know you all have, and your student probably has a destination in mind of a specific major, a specific career, a specific direction that they want to go to once they get to their post-Verto institution. And I just want to emphasize Verto ensures transferability, but not applicability. So we may offer courses that can apply to helping you become a business major or can help you on the road to becoming pre-med or pre-law or anything like that. But ultimately, whether or not you're admitted into those programs and can continue in that major at your post-Verto institution, that is their decision. And you have to satisfy their requirements. So again, the destination for us is a post-Verto institution, and making sure that you get back to the channel school that you had your sights set on when you initially applied to them. But again, it might not be a specific major within that school. So just something to keep in mind and plan. A lot of, like I said, the course registration guides will have additional information about specific majors, if there are any programs that require applications and things of that like. We also encourage students, if they're curious, to reach out to the transfer offices. A course that we want to spotlight, especially for our students who are like, I don't know what I want to do, is our SDev 1150 Foundations for Success course. So this is offered in all locations. It's a 1-credit course, and it's just a really excellent way for students to be supported academically and personally. They develop, in most locations, it's designed around developing an online presence, developing a LinkedIn profile, and then also just reflecting on your goals and your values and trying to figure out, okay, what do I want to do with the 4 years that stretch out ahead of me? How can I achieve those goals and set myself up for success? So, next slide, please, Mateo.
I just want to flag, because there were questions about the previous slide of where can you access the course registration guide that is particular to each channel. So we have many channel partners, and for that reason, it's not a public page that we put on our website. However, your student can log into MyVerto, which is where they're doing all of their pre-departure checklist items. So this should look very, very familiar to you and your student. If they go into post-Verto plans and select channel resources, this is where they're going to find their frequently asked questions document for their channel school, and also where they're going to find their course registration guide that is provided by their channel partner. This dummy account is not a channel student, so you see nothing, but your student, if they're a channel, they'll see FAQ with a link, and they'll see course registration guide with a link. So just know we're not able to provide everyone their link in this call right now, but every student has access to their course registration guide in MyVerto, which is where they've been working hard on all their pre-departure checklist items. So thank you, Stephen.
Thank you, Mateo. Thank you for calling that out. So we know where we're going. We're gassed up. We're all ready to go. And so what do we have to look forward to from orientation to add drop? So again, as I mentioned, open course registration ends June 13th. And between June 13th and the middle of July, students will only be able to access course selection if they submit documentation that changes their eligibility. And so just a reminder that the AP score release date will be July 7th. And then it may trigger an individual window for them. And then during the summer, we also have orientation in preparation for Discovery Week. So there will be some location-specific courses that students are enrolled in to help prepare them to start understanding the academic requirements for the location, to better understand what they can expect in the different places that they'll be. And then there will be some required synchronous orientations online, and then the in-person Discovery Week, which is the week before classes begin. Then students will receive their schedules 1 to 2 weeks prior to departure. And then depending, again, over the summer, ideas change, plans change. If students want to make changes to their schedule, they will be able to do so during the first week of classes. But changes are not guaranteed. So at that point, it's based on availability. Students will not be able to arrange schedules where they only meet on like Tuesday, Thursday, so that they can have a long Friday to, Wednesday weekend, things like that. So each time students make or request a change during add drop, it is reviewed by their on-site staff to make sure that the student is still enrolled in the correct number of courses, that they are on track to continue to their channel partner, and that they aren't trying to set themselves up to focus on the abroad part when really they should be focusing on the study part. So study abroad, the big capital letters there is the study. All right, next slide, please, Mateo. So your student semester what they can look forward to. So our faculty are experts. All faculty have at least a master's degree, and 60% of all of our fall 24 faculty had a doctorate. So PhD, EDD, et cetera. In fall 24, the average class size was between 14 and 16 students, so very intimate. And then there are tremendous amounts of active and experiential learning in all of the courses. We aim for at least 20% of total class time to be devoted to experiential learning. So students will have ample amount of time to go out, explore their city, and really just have this incredible, unique experience, apply what they learn in the classroom, etc. Next slide, please, Mateo. So it's not just their semester, it is also your semester. So what can you expect? So you should think of yourself as roadside assistants, supporting your student while they're abroad. Your advice and support is crucial. They cannot do this alone. They can't, just go off into the open road all by their lonesome. But also having to understand, again, there are new legal frameworks that shape this relationship. So FERPA, we can't talk to you about their academic records unless they give us permission, et cetera. And that to just recognize that sometimes interventions can be more detrimental than just advising your student and trying to connect them to the resources and having them figure out their problem for themselves. Again, one of the big things, distance, right? It could be the middle of the night for them when you're trying to get an answer in the middle of your day. And so the people who are best able to address their problems are the ones who are doing it synchronously together. So just to keep that in mind. One area that you can encourage your student, even before they leave the country, is to apply for academic accommodations. So these are reviewed and approved by the University of New Haven. If your student had a 504 or an IEP in high school, that documentation is insufficient for getting academic accommodations through the University of New Haven. They have additional forms that they have to fill out. They have to meet with the University of New Haven in a virtual meeting to talk through their accommodations. And so this is a process that you can help them focus on. Again, Mateo opened up the session and talked about, there's prom and there's trips and there's, all of these exciting things, and you're done with school. You're done with high school. You still have to keep your eyes on the prize and be ready for college. And so we want to make sure that all students apply in My Charger by July 1st so that they have adequate time to have their documentation in, make an appointment with the University of New Haven to have their accommodations reviewed and approved. And then, they have nothing to worry about once they get on site. Again, if you have any questions about this, please reach out to our Dean of Students email here listed, and they are more than happy to help answer any questions that you have about that process and supporting your student who might need academic accommodations. So let's jump back. Your student semester. So what kinds of on-site academic support can they expect? So office hours with faculty. All faculty are required to host office hours for students to have an opportunity to talk with them about how they're doing in the class, or get additional support. Students, once they find out what their schedule is, will have information in their syllabus about how to make time with the professor to access those hours. We offer peer tutoring for writing and math, so virtually as well as in person. And then sites and students frequently set up their own study groups. And so your student might get keyed into one of those, and then study halls. And so that is typically arranged by our student success staff, especially around high study times like midterms and finals. So a lot of different ways that we try to support your student to make sure that they have the resources to check in themselves before, maybe they can fix their tire before they call you in to help tow them out of the mud. So your semester, again, where are some places where it is appropriate and encouraged for you to check in with your student? So scheduled maintenance. At Verto, we have adopted a philosophy called parts of term. And so this divides the semester into 4 parts, and the expectation is that faculty will arrange their assignments so that students earn 25% of their grade in each part of term. So this ensures that students are submitting things, that they're getting feedback from their professors, that everything is not gambling on that one high stakes test. I'm sure some of you have seen movies or popular culture where it's like, oh, I failed the midterm. I have to pass the final if I want to pass the class. That is not how we do things here at Verto. So whenever checking in at those, the quarter, the halfway, the third, and the end, highly encouraged, good places to have conversations with your student about how they're doing, what can they do to turn it around if things are getting off track. Midterms happen at the end of part of term 2, so halfway through your student's experience. And it's a vital part of their journey, right? It's an opportunity to assess their progress, identify growth edges, and then the biggest opportunity to course correct before the end of the semester. We do some check-ins at part of term 3, but by that point, you're hurdling the last 4 weeks of the semester. It can be very difficult to turn things around in that part. So keeping that in mind, parts of term, great times to check in with your student and have conversations, especially if they are, seem to have lost their phone and aren't responding to your text messages. Those are good places to check in. Then your student semester renewing your license finals. So this is, again, essential. They finish their academic experience, and then based off of how they do here, it determines usually whether or not they're able to continue into an additional semester, if they're continuing on in their channel pathway, and things of that nature. So again, very important. As long as they maintain that 2.0, they can continue on with Verto. Questions?
All right, so we encourage you to drop your questions in the Q&A feature instead of the chat, so you can see all of the questions that have been answered already. And I see we have 18 questions answered already, ranging from placement exams to uploading transcripts to accommodations. So take a look at the questions that your peers have asked. Thank you for asking the questions, and thanks to my team for answering all of them. I see we have a couple new open questions. So there's a question here that I'll answer live. Do on-site advisors also check at midterms? So that's actually one of the great benefits of starting college with Verto is our system of support. Students are matched with a student success advisor that is the leader of a care team. So it's sort of a smaller learning community within our larger community that consists of about 30 to 40 students matched to every student success advisor. That SSA, as we call them, is monitoring grades, monitoring attendance, and is motivating your student to stay on track to keep their academic goals. So it's actually a requirement. Remind your student that we don't want to chase them during the semester. We want them to talk to us, and we require them to meet with us occasionally throughout the semester because we want them to make it to their channel school. We want them to get the grades that they want. So absolutely, our team will be monitoring their grades. As Stephen mentioned in the beginning, if your student hasn't signed a FERPA form, release or waiving their rights to, or essentially giving you access to their academic records, we won't be able to share academic progress with you. So that's something to keep in mind. And it's different than, wow, I see a Verto t-shirt. Robin, I love your shirt. Thank you. Sorry, I got distracted. It's different than high school, something to expect. But know that, yes, it's our absolute priority to get your student to their post-Verto plan. That's the whole premise of Verto is we want students to graduate on time. We want them to succeed. So we have many sort of checks and balances throughout the semester to ensure that they're making progress, and interventions if they're not, which is normal. We know that this is the first semester for students in college. And so hiccups happen. That's one of the great benefits of the parts of term, as Stephen mentioned, is unlike other schools that might have all of their grade dependent on one midterm and one final, you can expect a maximum of 25% of a grade earned in each of the 4 terms. So there's lots of opportunities to sort of view progress before the end of the semester. Any other questions, Steph, that you answered that you want to call out in the main chat here? Or Stephen, for that matter, as you're looking at their questions answered?
No, lots of great academic questions. I love having a session for solely focused on academics. We know there's a lot of other noise and things happening this time of year, but this is really the place to hone in on those academic questions, make sure that you understand that what the academic journey, both in pre-departure and then on site, will look like, and where to find the resources and next steps for your students academically. So everything looks good, and just trying to answer as many questions as possible.
Thank you. I do want to highlight one time-sensitive topic related to academic accommodations. So as Stephen mentioned, your student will need to apply for academic accommodations through University of New Haven. If they've had an IEP in high school, or even if they haven't and they think they would be eligible for an academic accommodation, we highly, highly encourage them to get a head start on that, because it takes several steps and they'll need to be proactive in securing those accommodations before they get on site. Otherwise, we can't retroactively apply academic accommodations and they won't start the semester off with all of the tools that they could potentially have. So on the enroll participants page, you'll see here on the academic section, the July 1st deadline is when we ask students complete their academic accommodation application. This is done in University of New Haven's website. So it's not my Verto, because it's not Verto who's granting the academic accommodations, but rather U New Haven. And you're going to see the step-by-step process to meet with their team and to secure those academic accommodations. So that's one that sneaks up on families, and then all of a sudden the semester starts and we're scrambling to make sure students have their accommodations. So please prevent that, and let's have your students start off on the best foot by applying to those academic accommodations by July 1st.
Thank you, Mateo. So some of the things that I wanted to call out that I've seen in the question in the Q&A is there was a question about whether or not your semesters with Verto have to be back to back. The answer is no, but the caveat is that we are a program that is focused on the first year experience. So the courses that we have included in our catalog are chosen because they support getting those general education courses out of the way. And so if you take a gap between your first semester with Verto and try to come back later, there might, like, in addition to coming back in a semester where the sequence of courses might not be available, you're also risking, you would just be coming back to very basic courses that don't align with where you are in your academic journey anymore. So I would really consider that aspect of it. But of course, if we ever extend into the higher levels further on in college, you know, our alumni will be some of the first people to know, because we always love having people come back and participating in future semesters. But for now, that is not the plan. And so you should really, if you're considering doing an additional semester with us, trying to stay, you know, as many semesters in a row as you can, or want to, up to 3. Then I also saw a question about the specifics of the math exam in PACE. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about the placement exams. So in Canvas, the math placement exam, there are 3 components to it. There is a survey that asks students about their previous levels of math and how confident they feel in their math classes. Then there is a optional practice quiz where they can see some of the questions that they'll see on the main test. And then finally, there is the main placement exam. So that is a 30-question test, 30-question math placement test. And based off of how your student does determines what their level is. So if your student has not gotten to that 30-question test yet, they have not completed the math placement exam. So it will also show in my Verto that they haven't completed it yet. So if they've opted out of taking the math placement exam, they will be able to complete course selection, but it will not show a score in my Verto until they've completed that exam. And it takes us about 2 days to evaluate those and get them applied to student records. So, and then just again, I see one about, like, there will be no issues in registering for all of the required courses for successful transfer. So again, when students go through course selection, they will not be allowed to select courses that won't transfer. So we are guaranteeing that they will be enrolled in classes that will transfer. But the piece that is does have some flexibility is that students are ranking their selections. So they're making a choice of 5 primaries and between 2 to 3 alternates. And then based off of how the schedule comes together on site, then we build a schedule that gives them the majority, hopefully the majority of their primary interests. So it's very important that students, when they're ranking their course selections in course selection, that they are doing it in the preference that they want that they actually want those courses, that they're not just throwing them into their basket, because that is how we prioritize making sure that students get the schedules that they want. So in most cases, students get percent of their first choice courses. But there is, again, sometimes it's just a scheduling issue. So, if 2 faculty can only teach at the same time, and that's your student's top 1 or 2, they're going to get a schedule that just has the 1 and then slots in there 3, 4, 5. So just to keep that in mind as students start to get schedules towards the middle of August is when those should be published to students. Let me see if there's anything else. There was a question about students who have taken, so PACE, IB, AP, CLEP, if your student has, your student has done any kind of college preparatory work, we recommend that you submit it through the prior learning credit form, which is on Verto. And students can submit as many documents of prior learning as they want through that. And our registrar will review it and then help to adjust course eligibilities so that they aren't retaking courses. The piece to this to keep in mind, though, is that Verto does not, so like an AP course, we won't put that on the transcript. The University of New Haven doesn't put that on the transcript. It is the responsibility of the post-Verto institution. So you'll want to check with wherever your student is going after Verto to see if they'll accept the credit. So we want to make sure that your student isn't taking courses that they already have experience in, but ultimately it's the student's responsibility to make sure that they aren't trying to waive a requirement that they'll still have to fulfill in the future. So again, Mateo answered that question and encouraged people to come to office hours. So your student can sign up for them through the community app. And those will be every Wednesday through the end of open registration. So through June 11th. So we want to make sure that your students have an opportunity to come and talk to our academic affairs staff and get those questions answered and look at those things together. So, and again, so if your student takes any courses that, so between when course selection completely closes in July and add drop week in August or the first week of classes, students are still able to go into PACE and take their placement exams. They're still able to submit prior learning credit. It's just they won't receive a selection window. Selection won't reopen for them. So they will have to wait until add drop to make any changes. So if you have, like I said, if you have any documentation, you want to make sure to get it. Hopefully you can get it in before June 13th, so you can just take advantage of the open registration period. But if you have to submit it after June 13th and between the middle of July, you'll get an individual window. And then after the middle of July until add drop, you'll just have to wait until your student's on site. So, and again, a follow-up about the math placement exam, make sure that you're going along in Canvas at the bottom. You can click next. So if he gets to a window that says, you can't progress forward, check in with email at the registrar at vertoeducation.org, and we can check and see if something's up. But I get the feeling that there's some instructions that are being crossed here. So I should be able to take it once you complete those steps. Okay. Questions?
Well, Stephen, as you look through questions, and I see Steph vigorously answering questions as well. We've already answered 34. I want to give some highlights of things you can expect in the weeks and months to come. So first, you may have heard we're hosting an in-person family day for this upcoming semester. It's going to be on August 26th, which is the day after students arrive. So while your students are completing Discovery Week, which is their first week on site, as Stephen mentioned, students actually don't travel internationally and then meet their professors the very next day and start coursework. We give them a comprehensive orientation called Discovery Week that allows them to get to know their surroundings, get to know their community, answer a lot of questions that they have about how to be successful, and hit the ground running the following week when their courses start. So while they're off getting to know each other and getting to know their student success advisor, we have an opportunity for families to join if you're choosing to accompany your student in their arrival. And you will get the opportunity to meet our program director, see our study center up close and personal. We'll have some sort of experiential activity around the study center. So it'll be a fun time. I will say we have a waiting list already for Prague, London, and Florence. So if you want to add to that waiting list, check your email inbox. Last week, in the past couple of weeks, we've been adding information about Family Day. I will also say there's no pressure to accompany your student for arrival. If you were planning on visiting after the semester ends or not visiting at all, both of those plans are absolutely acceptable. We respect whatever works best for your student as they prepare for this big transformation from high school to college. I also want to say we have a social media contest called Verto Bound. It's open until May 31st, so your student has 10 more days. And if they go on TikTok, they record a video explaining why they're excited to be a member of our community for this upcoming semester, and they'll have a chance to win a round-trip airfare reimbursement up to $1,000. So I know many students are already giving us their round-trip flights, which is great. We need that. And your student might be our lucky winner to win a round-trip reimbursement flight. So if they want to participate in that, we highly recommend them they get on that. The deadline for that is May 31st. Oh, Steph, I added this. I don't know if you want to talk to anything about billing.
Sure thing. Switching brains, I was just answering questions, sorry. Billing. Yes, reminder that program fees are due June 1st, which is quickly coming up in just about 2 weeks. So that means payment in full or first installment of the payment plan or proof of loan. How do you do this? Your students will first log into my Verto billing section and fill out the payment method form. So I recommend doing that with them. Here's the different payment methods. So they'll simply select what they are planning to do. You can choose multiple, of course. And that will then give them instructions for next steps. If you are wanting to make a electronic payment, such as ACH, credit card, debit card, bank transfer, you'll do that through the MyVerto. If you are, we do accept physical checks through the mail. So you can do personal 529 accounts that way. You can use private student loans. Those will be sent to University of New Haven. And of course, external scholarships as well. Any questions, feel free to reach out to financial services at vertoeducation.org. We have a small team taking care of that inbox, and we'll be happy to assist you. Thank you.
Thank you, Steph. Someone asked, is the student onboarding advisor the same as a counselor? Should we be setting up a meeting with him or her to ask questions about course selection? So your student onboarding advisor is a great resource for everything, maybe except for academic advising. For that reason, we have our office hours. And that's because we want your student to connect with experts from our academic affairs team to ask their specific questions, to go through the resources that your student was provided from their channel partner. So I'll put the link to that office hour in the chat. I also put the Family Day link there. We request that if you plan on attending the office hours, please join with your student. This is your student's academic experience, and we can only best advise if your student is there present and able to answer questions that we have for them or advise as they are looking at the courses that they want to take. So please, we love having families there. We just want your student there as well too, so that we can best advise. Our next course selection office hour is happening 1 week from today. They happen every Wednesday. So if you can't make next Wednesday, you can also join our June 4th one or our June 12th one. But yeah, we hope to see you there to answer any questions specifically to your students' course selection process. All right, I'm looking and seeing. Oh, tell me.
I see one question in the chat, not in the Q&A. So asking about if there's a course offered through Verto, does it count towards graduation? You can assume that if you take a course through Verto, that is that your student is able to select through the course selection tool, that it will transfer, and they are a channel student, that it will transfer to that school, that they will receive credit for it. Graduation requirements, entirely different beast. That is often major dependent. And so, like I said, the majority of the courses in our catalog have been selected due to their high transferability and applicability to the general education requirements that all first-year students need to fulfill. And so across majors, in most cases, it should. Again, you'll want to refer to your channel guide. You'll want to make sure that as you're making the transition from your Verto experience to that channel partner, that you're talking to them with the resources that they provide. But that ultimately those things are handled by the post-Verto institution. And then, if your student is really interested in, say, taking the food, culture, and cuisine course, but wants to become a doctor, I cannot guarantee, it's very hard to say that that course will definitely contribute to graduation. Maybe it'll fulfill an elective. Maybe it'll fulfill something along those lines. We don't want to discourage students from branching out and trying different things that are interesting to them, especially because they're in such unique locations and have such a wonderful experience ahead of them. But just trying to kind of keep that balance in mind that, where if a student is going for a very niche major, some things, it'll just be an interesting class that they've taken and it fulfills some elective credit, perhaps.
Stephen, a few questions that have come into the chat. Where can we find the FERPA form? Where can students find that? Can you review that, please? Because that's a very important feature.
Yes, Mateo has it pulled up here. So we have through the University of New Haven, there's a landing page that has all of the resources that students will most frequently access using My Charger or related to the University of New Haven, and they can come here and complete the FERPA form. I believe this is linked on the enrolled participants page, Mateo. Yep. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions that Stephen or Steph you wanted to highlight before we open up our breakout rooms?
Sure, I will highlight, there's a few questions about what percentage of students continue on to their post-Verto plan that they intentionally came up with, that they arrived with at the end of the semester. And I can guarantee you, if a student, it's majority. So sometimes the answer is not quite so simple because sometimes students change their mind, right? It's not that they couldn't continue on. They may have realized that post-Verto plan was not the best fit for them. They have changed interest. They're applying to another school, whatever that looks like. So that does happen as well, and Verto can support them through that. That being said, if a student is not continuing onto their post-Verto plan, Verto offers so much support for a first-year program, significantly more than you would have on site as a first-year student, especially at a large university. That and like Stephen said, with the parts of term and the student success advisors and the small classes, the experiential nature, that if a student is not continuing it on, there's probably they're aware of that well ahead of time, and Verto is doing everything possible to support them. So I'd say the other part of that is Verto is a great first year environment for that reason, because most students have the same goal. to do really well so that they can continue on. And that looks very different than perhaps at a first year, at a freshman in a large university or university your freshman year, where people have different goals. And I can speak personally for myself. My freshman year academically was my worst year by far, and it hurt me significantly because I wasn't as focused and I was in large lectures, maybe didn't really like the major I had chosen and was stuck in that spot for a little while until I could transfer into another major. So the beauty of Verto is everybody is moving in the same direction, both the support and all the student goals. So I hope that helps to answer your question without having an exact number, because again, there could be any number of different reasons why students don't continue on. But most do. Most students who want to land at their channel partner, land at their channel partner. And if they don't want to land at their channel partner, Verto helps them to land someplace else where they want to land.
All right, so we're nearing the end of we're over our time. So I want to appreciate our speakers for sharing lots of great information about your students' academic journey. We're going to park our car now and park all of our questions. You can take the key out of the ignition. We've arrived at our destination for this evening. So thank you, Stephen, and thank you, Steph. At this time, we're going to open up some breakout rooms to give you an opportunity to meet families whose student is going to the same location as yours. I will say, the marching orders from here are definitely make sure your student is making progress on their course selection. So June 12th is an important day for them to have completed their course selection. As a reminder, they have to complete their math exam before they do that, and it takes a couple days to process. So please don't wait until June 12th for your 11 p.m. To have your student complete this. We want to help them be proactive so that they can select or preference the courses that they're most interested in. I think that's all we have. So if you are not making it to our breakout rooms, I encourage you before you leave to look at our Q&A. We answered 46 questions tonight, and many more just out loud. So take a look at those. Your answer might be there. If not, as usual, your answer probably is in the enrolled participants page, either in the location resources. We have our packing list is available. The academic calendar is available. We have basic information about how to use a phone on site. So lots of pre-departure docs are already available for you and your student. And then of course, our handy dandy enrolled participants page has a lot of great resources for you. If, for example, you need to refresh on when your student should be arriving and departing, all of that information is there as you're starting to book flights and turn those in. So the last thing I'll say is that we will upload a recording of this session on our family resources page. So I think on our enrolled participants page, if you click into family resources, you scroll all the way down, you're going to see a pre-departure playlist. This is all of the family facing events we've hosted this session, or this season rather. And you'll also see the recording of the previous session. So before this expires, it won't expire, it's in the pre-departure playlist, but I highly recommend checking out our alumni panel. We had 5 families join us and talk authentically about their experience. Expect by the end of this week to find the recording of this session on this page. This page also has some great information about how to support your student pre-departure, things to keep in mind. So I'll drop this in the chat, and I look forward to you checking it out and giving us your feedback. So thanks, everyone. I hope you have a great rest of your week and month. I know June 1st feels really momentous, and it is, but we're working together, and we're so thankful of you helping your student be proactive and completing their checklist items and getting ready for their first semester of college. So, encourage them to celebrate, but also keep on them about their checklist items, keep on them about course selection, because we can do both. We can have fun and graduate and enjoy our senior year, and also make progress on an even more exciting experience, I would say, which is your first semester of college abroad with Verto. So we'll do this together. Just take a deep breath. We've got this. Thank you, Stephen, and thank you, Steph, for your expertise tonight. And I'll open the breakout rooms now. If you're leaving us, we'll see you for our next session, forthcoming information in our weekly family checklist about our next session. But thank you so much for joining us tonight, and we'll see you next time. All right, so I've opened up our breakout rooms. If you click into your Zoom toolbar, you'll see either you'll have a breakout room button, or if you click more and then click breakout room, there is one breakout room per location. So at this point, I see families are already in London. There's a family in Prague. There is a family in Florence, Seville. So there's a high likelihood that you'll be able to connect with family member peers by joining your breakout room for your student's fall location. Thanks, folks, for your gratitude in the chat. We thank you as well. So once more, breakout rooms, to access them, you can click your Zoom toolbar and you might have a button that says breakout rooms, or it might say more, and you click into that 3 dots and choose the breakout room section. Then you're going to move into the room that represents your student's fall semester location. So we have 5 families in Florence, 10 in London, 8 in Prague, 6 in Seville. Any BA families, I'd love for you to join your room. If you're not seeing the option, you can go ahead and put in the chat which room you'd like me to move. And by that, I mean, tell me the location of your student for the fall, and I can manually move you there. I'm going to stop our recording.